All right, welcome back. We are now up to the section on reshaping data, and we're going to start out by reshaping data from a wide format to a long format. And for those of you who haven't heard about this before, let's take a second to explain what we're really talking about. There are, in fact, two ways that you can enter data into any program, SAS, SPSS, data, whatever, and those are usually called wide and long. So in a wide format, you would have one subject per row, but all of their variables would be out in a different variable. So, for example, here we have family income for 96, for 97, and 98. And so this is called wide because you can see that the data set's getting very wide this way. The other way you can put it in is to say, okay, well, I have my family ID, and then I have a variable here that's called year, and this goes 96, 97, 98, and then I have the family income for family 1 here for 96, 97, 98. So it's fam ID, and it's 111 right down the row, or down the column here, and then the family income, and then family 2 has 3 rows for themselves for their 3 incomes, and so forth, and that's called long. And reshaping from wide to long or long to wide is necessary because different statistical procedures require the data to be in these different formats. For example, if you're analyzing repeated measures kinds of data and you're using a GLM approach or a repeated measures ANOVA kind of approach, the data need to be in a wide format. However, if you're using some sort of mixed or proc mixed or something like that, the data are required to be in a long format. And so you need to know how to flip the data back and forth between these two formats. And you have a couple of ways of doing that in SAS. We're going to show you how to do this with a data step, and we're going to start out by showing you the manual way of doing this. So that's what's going on here. We have a data set here that we're going to call wide. We are going to input a family ID, the family income for 96, for 97, and 98. And please don't ask me why we have an obsession with other people's money. I don't really know. So that's the data set that we're going to run in, and let's look down here at this reshaping here. We're going to call this data long manual, and we're going to use set wide, so this is the set here, and we're going to say that a variable called year equals 96, and that faminc equals faminc 96. So this is a new variable that we're creating, and we're setting it equal to the value that's in this variable. And then we're going to output that to this data set right here, and then we're going to say year is 97, and that this variable faminc now equals the value in faminc 97. We'll output that value to this data set, and then do the same thing for 98. And then we're going to do a proc print here. So let's come back here to our program, and I'm just going to run this whole thing. Let me scroll down a little bit, see if we can't get all of this in one shot. There we go. So there's the data set that we're inputting. Here is the data step that is going to reshape it from wide to long, and then here's the proc print of this final data set. We'll highlight it all, click on the running person, and there we go. So you remember before how it was out wide like this, and now it's down long like this. So there are 3 rows for each family, and then we have the year cycling like this. Okay, so that's what's going on here. Let's come back to the program. Now, next question to ask is, why all of these output statements? Okay, this is getting a little bit redundant here. Let's scroll down here and have a look. We have exactly the same program down here that we had up here, but we've put stars here to comment out this output so that when SAS comes through this data step, it sees this comment, it skips right over it. And that's what we want to do to illustrate what happens. So let's highlight this, and we'll mouse down if we can, highlight all that, and let's click on our running person. And you see that there's just a little bit of a problem here. We got everything for the year 98, but nothing for year 96 or year 97. Now why is that? Let's come back to the program, and that's because we had the output statement here that was working and not, say, here. So if we took this out and commented this and ran it again, let's try that, and we'll click on our running person. Okay, now you see here's 97 because that's where the output statement was. So that's the way that's working here. Alrighty. Now why go to all of that trouble? Why to explain that? Let's scroll down here some more. Scrolling. And here we are doing arrays. And we're just going to do one variable at a time here, but we'll get to doing more than one variable at a time in just a second. So we have our data statement. We're creating a data set that we're going to call long array. Data set will be wide, okay. And here we have the array statement. AFAM Inc. I tell you, we are not really creative with naming our arrays. And then here we have 96 to 98. And we saw notation very similar to this a little while ago when we went from 2 to 12. Well, you can go from 96 to 98 or wherever you need to. So this is just the starting point and the ending point. And then we list here the elements in the array. And now we're ready to do our do loop. So we do year, and so we've given this a meaningful name because it's the year. Don't call it something like if you can give it a real name so you know what it is. And so we're going from 96 to 98. Makes sense. And here we have our FAMINC equals AFAM Inc. year. Let me scroll up a little bit. Let me see if I can't get that. There we are. Let me put that back like this. Okay, so this here, this statement here, should look just like this statement here, and for that matter, the statement up here and the one for 96. It's all the same thing. So FAMINC equals the array and the subscript. Okay, so here's the element of the array, and here is the subscript. And so these two correspond to one another. And this output is part of the do loop, and that's why we went to all that trouble to explain the function of where output goes, because it has to be part of that loop. It has to be done every time that SAS cycles through this do loop, or we're not going to get the output in the data set that we're hoping for. So that's why this output statement absolutely has to come before the end of the do loop. Okay, and then we're going to drop out these variables because we don't need them anymore. So let's scroll down here just a little bit more and highlight this, and we'll go ahead and click on our running person. There we go. And so we see that this corresponds to this right here, and this was the manual way that we had done things. And then here we have it with the arrays, and you see that they're exactly the same thing. Okay, so that's how you do it with one variable. Let's come back over here to our program, and of course we can make this a little more complicated. But not much, won't be bad. Okay, so we're reshaping wide to long, creating multiple variables, including string variables. So we have a new data set that we're going to be working with. We're going to call it multi-wide. We have a length statement here, and we're inputting a variable called det96, which is a string variable. It's what this $sign here means. And we're giving it a length of 3, and so on. And these are these variables right here. They correspond to these names right out here. So we're inputting a family ID, which you see right here. 3 years of family incomes right here, and then we have these 3 variables that correspond to the spending, and then whether or not the families went into debt. Okay, so we are going to highlight all of this and click on the running person, and you see that everything came in, just the way we wanted. And again, debt is up here in the beginning because of that length statement. That's how it got put up front, right? Because the length statement actually comes before this input. Okay, so there's that. Let's scroll down some, and and try and do this thing with some arrays. Okay, here we go. So we're going to call this multi-long. The set will be multi-wide. Okay, that's not bad. Again, we have the length statement for our det variable. It's a string variable with a length of 3. And now, because we had those 3 variables before, well, we've now got 3 arrays. Okay, but you'll see that they're all set up just the same way. We have the array statement. We named the array. Here we called it A fam inc. We start at 96, we end at 98, and the elements in this array are fam inc 96 to fam inc 98. Second array statement looks pretty darn similar. We have the array statement. We call this one A spend for the spending variables. We start at 96, we end at 98, and the elements in this array are spend 96 through spend 98. Third array statement for the third variable, array right here. A det is what we called it. Here we have 96 to 98, and it corresponds to these variables right here. Okay, nothing big there. Do loop, year 96 to 98, and these are all set up just as they were before, and you see that they're all very similar to one another because we're doing exactly the same thing over and over again. The output statement is within the do loop, and then we have the end, and then we're dropping out the old variables here. If you don't have this, that's okay. Just highlight all this stuff and click on the running person. There we go. And so here is the data set in a wide format, and here is the data set in a long format. Okay, so let's come back down here and let's throw another monkey wrench into this. How about if we do some reshaping in the presence of character suffixes, or string suffixes as you might call them. So, what are we really doing here? We have a data set called character, and we have a length statement here, and we're going to put in old name. Of course, that's a string, and we're going to call that 24 characters long. Name now, well, that's going to be 24, and name future. And so we're going to input all of these along with their income. So you see our theme of other people's money is still continuing. Here are our data, and we are going to use this prop print to see it. And notice that you can use this double dash here so that it picks up positionally consecutive variables, because we input this as old, now, and future, so you can put in old and future, and this double dash will pick up now. You have to be careful when you use this little trick, though, because if I had variables x, y, and z in here, they would also be picked up by this double dash, and that may not be what you want. But just a little SAS trick. Highlight all this stuff, click on the running person, and so there we go with our data set. Okay, back to the program. Scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. Okay. So we have a data set that we're creating. We're going to call it character array, set character. We have a length statement here establishing a variable called name. It's a string variable with a length of 24. And we have 2 arrays now because we had 2 variables. We had name and income. So we call the first one a name. We say that it has 3 elements. And this $sign here says that it is a string array. Okay. And so here are the elements in our array. And here we go with the next array statement. We call this one A income. It's got 3 elements, and those are the 3 elements there. So now what we're going to do is come into our do loop. We're going to say time 1 to 3 corresponds to this 3 right here. So name equals a name with the subscript of time, so 1, 2, and 3. Income equals a income, 1, 2, and 3. The output statement is before the end statement, and other than that, we have seen everything before. Now we have a little proc format here to create a format for the outputting. If you skip this, no big deal. Your output will just look a little bit different. And then this format statement here creates or uses the format that we used up here, that we create right here, okay? Let's highlight all this and click on the running person. Okay, so here are the data in a wide format. Here are the data in a long format. So it looks like he started out with the name of Raymond. His name is now Martin, and in the future he will be known as Martin Sheen, and you can see that his income is going to go up as his name changes. And so we have Mary Kathleen to Bo, and when her name becomes Bo Derek, well, then we see income going up again. So that is another cool thing that you can do with arrays and reshaping. So we're going to take yet another break, and when we come back, we're going to reshape it the other way.